Okay, welcome to another episode of Recovering Gen X podcast, where we dive deep into the music, moments, and memories that shaped our generation. And today's episode is going to be a special one. We're talking about The Cure, one of the most iconic bands in the world, and we have a fellow Cure head and dear friend / old roommate from Huntington Beach days joining us today, Miss Gail Russell. Welcome to the podcast, Gail.
Thank you. I like that.
You get a cheer.
Thank you.
Gail, I'm so happy that you could join this episode with me because we have such a great, well, we've got many connections, but this is one of them. And I've only known a few people in my life who loved The Cure, like really loved The Cure. And you're one of them. And, you know, this last year in the last tour that we got to experience together, I mean, we hadn't seen each other in 30 years. And then
Right.
we just decided to get these tickets and meet up in San Diego and go on this tour together. So it's been an epic year, and I'm so glad I got to experience that with you. And that's something we're totally going to go into at the end of the episode, that whole concert experience. And I think what a perfect way for us to reconnect with each other after all these years. So I'm going to start by asking you some questions. We're going to do Cure stories. So the theme of this episode is, what is your Cure story? I mean, I'd say major Cure fans have their own Cure story of how they first heard of them, you know, how much they meant to them, what the favorite songs are, what it's meant over the years, and how Robert Smith and his persona, you know, shaped us. So let's start at the very beginning. When did you first hear The Cure, and what was it about their music that drew you in?
So I remember it was in high school, probably about 83. Um, I just heard a song and it was Let's Go to Bed. And it was at like a house party or something. And I thought, oh my gosh, what a cool song. But I happened to be dating a guy at the time who was a heavy metal guy. So my high school years were mainly spent going to heavy metal concerts. But I never forgot that. I love that song. And then 1985, is when Head on the Door came out. And I'm like, wow, I don't want to just listen to rock and roll anymore. And that album it was such a great album. And then again, fast forward a couple years, and I didn't purchase my first Cure album until Kiss Me, Kiss Me, Kiss Me. And that was it. Then it was all done. Then it was all done after that. And just a monumental album for me. Kiss Me, Kiss Me, Kiss Me was like my album.
Yeah, that's funny. And we probably talked about this on our trip, but that is my album too. The first time I heard them, it was Head on the Door. It was in between days, and I was sitting in the back seat of my girlfriend Nicole Pagonis' brother's, who was older. You know, he was the older kid in high school, the older cool kid. And I remember thinking it was the coolest thing. I'd just never heard anything like it. I didn't know who this was. When I started to see their album covers, I was like, who are these people? Like there was never a face. It was always just
Right.
weird kind of outline of a person or people. And it always looked so mysterious. And I was like, I don't even know who I'm listening to, but I love it. And then Kiss Me came out. And that was it for me too. I mean, the first song was Just Like Heaven that came out, I believe.
Yeah.
And yeah, I mean, what a perfect time. I was 14. Just Like Heaven was such a like perfect poppy song, but coming from this incredibly unique band with this unbelievably gorgeous person singing. You know, the video for Just Like Heaven. That was the first time I'd ever seen Robert Smith, right? It's the first,
Hmm.
like when he turned around in the video and there's this guy with big black hair and eyeliner and makeup, and I was like, oh my God, that was it for me. I was done.
Me as well. It was funny. I took this morning, I was trying to find a picture that I knew existed, and I couldn't find it because I was so enamored with his black hair and his red lips and even white face, no makeup, just the black hair and lip. I couldn't get enough. And the only two posters I've ever owned were a picture of Robert Smith, and I kept it above my bed, and Edward Scissorhands was on the other wall facing me. It's because those I couldn't get enough of that look, but unlike Edward Scissorhands, Robert Smith had poetry and music, so he won the day, but he was always just above my head.
It's so funny. I did too. He was right above my bed. And it's so funny. The look, the look between the two of them. That is a type. That is a type for
It's
sure.
a type. And I also remember because obviously me being in high school in the 80s, um, it was a clash between glam rock and mod and ska and punk. And so we had everything at my school. But God, the first time I saw this one particular guy, he was 3 years older than me, and he showed up at school with with eyeliner and mascara on. I just thought, oh, so gorgeous. And I could, and then Robert Smith shows up, and I'm like, oh, okay, that's way better.
Isn't that funny? Like
Oh,
there's
so beautiful.
there's androgyny to it.
Hmm.
That's one thing I love about him. And I know we're kind of focusing on Robert right now, and
Right.
this is bigger than Robert because it's about
Oh
the
yeah,
music,
it's
but he
about
is
the yeah.
such a big part of this. Um, there's a few things I love about Robert. One of them is that androgynous
Hmm.
aspect to him. Like, you know, is he is he gay? Is he straight? Is he sexual? I don't even
Yeah.
know. He doesn't lead with that at all.
Mm-mm.
Compared to, let's say, Dave of Depeche Mode, like
Yeah.
he is outwardly very sexual in his
Yeah.
performance on stage, whereas
Right.
Robert does not exude it. It's a very vague kind of what is he,
I,
you know? And I love that about him too, that it's not just in your face.
exactly. There's a mystery about him, which actually is even more exciting.
Mhm.
Um, because and I know we are talking just about his look right now, but that I think is what is so exciting about him is because there's so many facets to I think the Cure. Besides, yeah, you could just look at him as a front man, and that's enough. But then you can't mistake his amazing guitar playing. And so you have this amazing front man, because when you think of bands, you always think, oh, there's this front man who's usually way out there and crazy, and there's some amazing drummer behind him and a great lead guitarist.
Right.
And he is an amazing front man, an amazing guitar player, a voice that's as haunting and as amazing as anything I've ever heard, and then a poet. Right, it's just so much to him and the band itself, but to him individually, you're not just looking at him, but there's so much there.
Yes. It's true. I never saw them growing up. I didn't know until I got older that he was the one playing that guitar, the one that sounds the way you feel inside
Hmm.
guitar. I didn't know that majority of the songs were written by him. I
Yeah,
thought it was more like the band overall, but when I started
yeah,
to learn, that this wasn't just a band, yes, the band is amazing,
right.
but that his ability to, not only the writing, the lyrics, the poetry, the way he was able to craft music and sounds around
Hmm.
those around the concept and then adding the words uh,
Mm-hmm.
that brought it all together. So with Kiss Me, um, it was the song The Kiss, the first song.
Mm-hmm.
I knew the pop, I knew Why Can't I Be You? I knew Just Like Heaven.
Right.
It wasn't until I was 15 and I was going through a really dark period, as we do at that age,
Yes.
that age. And I remember I had just gotten sober,
Mm.
and I was a sophomore in high school. Well, I have to add in there with as far as like our type,
Yeah.
after I saw him for the first time, anyone that looked like him, I was like, oh my God. The next boyfriend I had looked exactly like him in my new high school. Eyeliner, the hair, he was a little more punk rock,
Yeah.
than Robert, but yeah, that became the type after that. But the first time I heard The Kiss,
Mm-hmm.
I'd just gotten sober. Clearly, at 15, if I'm getting sober, there was a problem, but
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
it's not normal. Uh,
Yeah.
that's when I heard The Kiss, and I remember, but it literally saved my life
Mm-hmm.
because I was
Mm-hmm.
in a really dark place and I didn't
Yeah.
have any outlets to escape
Mm-hmm.
it anymore. I never knew what to do with the emotions and the truth, and how do I say it? What do I don't even, I just could not make sense of anything until I heard that song.
Mm-hmm.
And he captured the rage inside of me,
Mm-hmm.
and I never heard anyone be able to put into words and sound exactly how I felt on the inside at that time in my life, especially about that particular subject that was really consuming me at the time.
Mm-hmm.
What song on Kiss Me did that, or any?
Yeah, so it's so interesting because you and I came from two totally different worlds.
Mhm,
So I was the one that came in and I bounced in on all the happy tunes.
mhm,
And then Torture and all these other songs, Kiss Me, all these other songs, I'm going, wow, what is that like? And I'm like, just like heaven, that was always a bit, that was more me. And I just thought, this is just fascinating how he could bring you there, and then all of a sudden you're listening to just like how, and it was just like track, and it was like deep, and then this mellow, and then this deep dark, and then this mellow, and it was just a ride, that album. I I did love If Only Tonight. That one was just his. He could he could just bring you into a an intense, deep place that it's like it was almost scary because I had such a lollipop life that I was almost scared, that I was like going, wow, this is just, dark and exciting. And I didn't totally understand it when I was first hearing it. And then a little later on, uh, a couple other songs on that. It's like Just Like Heaven and One More Time have a sad story to them,
mhm,
uh, and but they're that time of my life, young love, um, experience, whirlwind experience like we had back in the day. And I realized just even as I was kind of thinking, "Kiss Me, Kiss Me, Kiss Me," and "Disintegration" being my two major Cure life anthem albums of especially that time in my life, just seemed like so much happened to me in such a small amount of time. And
yeah,
I was kind of going, did all of this happen in just literally 3 years? So right before I moved down to Huntington,
yeah,
and right before we moved in was when I was listening to mainly listening to Kiss Me. And so, remember Dave that used to come down to visit us? Dave and I and Derek, this guy named Derek, worked together, and I had the hugest crush on Derek. And he was a very, I mean, look, nothing. Let's just say, look, 180 degrees different than Robert Smith. But I just had such a crush on him. And the only thing we had in common was he liked The Cure. And I would do anything to try to get him just to like little conversations, but he was just a very standoffish, very shy. And Dave used to try to help, you know, get him a little more, but he just wasn't budging. And then one day he came to work after we were, I don't even know how we even got on to talking about The Cure, but literally that was the only thing we had in common. Um, he came to work and he just had this awful look on his face and he wouldn't say anything. And it was just really eerie and weird. And then he was sitting behind his desk and he wrote out all the lyrics to Just Like Heaven. And he came over to my, never again, didn't say a word to me, came over to my desk and then kneeled down and he handed me this paper and he said, my sister died. And he kind of put his head in my lap and I'm like kind of tripping out because I've been wanting to have a conversation, something more with this person, and this was what we had. He wrote me the lyrics to Just Like Heaven. And didn't know what to do, and we had to get back to work. And then we later spoke, and he later told me the story of what happened to his sister, and then that was it. And then that was it. He just went back to just not really talking, not really just being aloof and everything. And then I moved to Huntington Beach, and we never spoke again. And then I called the office. Well, after we moved in together, I called the office and I invited him down to Huntington. And
Did
he
I?
said, yeah, I think you did, but I can't remember. And he came down. He said and I was like just shocked. And then we went out and we just had this whirlwind night. We went to nightclub and spent the night and then he got up and left and I never spoke to him again. And it was so weird. I mean, nothing major happened, still this like weird push pull bizarre thing. And then again, months went, I don't even know how much time went by. He got a hold of me and we went out to dinner and we took this real big long walk and neither of us could say, hey, we like each other. I was dating somebody at the time and I wanted to break up with him because I wanted to tell him I liked him.
Mhm.
And then um, right after I broke up with the guy, um, he called me to tell me that he was getting married.
Oh no, the timing.
um, that's what I'm saying. It was such a weird night. It was the most beautiful night walking on the beach and just walked for hours in the dark in Ventura. And then I was devastated. And he sent me an invitation to his wedding,
Oh,
and I didn't go.
well,
And he called me. And the very last time I ever heard his voice was when he called me to say he was brokenhearted that I didn't come. I just remember being so sad that I couldn't tell him I couldn't go because I didn't want to see him I couldn't be happy for him. I wasn't happy. And so that's when I started listening to One More Time. And so that's kind of my Derek. Obviously when you're young, I mean, still, what were we, 25 or something? And those were just such big, bizarre, and again, very little happened in our relationship, but they seemed so big and so amazing. And Robert was right there with his songs, you know,
I,
being monumental, bookending the just a sweet but very sad but I just adored him. Never have heard or seen from he did sound a little mad in the voicemail. So that I didn't come. And yeah, I don't know, I heard him clearly.
he maybe didn't understand.
I think we both just knew there we weren't meant to be together or anything, but there was still this kind of weird pull that we had. And yeah, it was just really strange. So that album, and those particular songs, like I said, were big ones for me, for him in particular.
Mhm. Whenever I do watch interviews with Robert, he's really awkward. You know,
Hmm.
he's just not really good at expressing himself. And even when they got the inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, you
Oh,
know,
I remember. Yes,
yeah,
very
he
awkward.
very awkward. And we knew he would be, uh, but I feel equally as awkward when I am trying to communicate emotions to people.
Yeah.
So the fact that he found a way to put words and sound to it, uh, probably better than anyone I've heard.
Oh, by far, and with him especially, with their band, because they were definitely kind of put in a category of, like punk, but new wave, or and then they had their poppy stuff, and the pop stuff would be the only stuff that would get on the air. And I mean, he just their sound, his sound, his ability to change. I mean, putting out album year after year after year with some stuff that would get on the air was great. But if you were smart and actually picked up the CD,
Right.
um, and listened to the whole thing, you were just going.
Yeah.
It was back when albums and CDs were experiences.
Yes.
The entire album was an experience.
I think another reason why I loved Kiss Me so much is it wasn't just one thing. Like you said, he went from rage to beauty to despair to fun it was it was the full gamut of all of our emotions, because I was never just one thing. I was never just depressed or
Yes,
just happy. I was everything in between, and he
yeah.
captured that on one album.
On one album of song after song. I don't know how many songs are on there. What, 13, 14
Yeah.
songs of just great, of melodies, lyrics. Just it was just an amazing CD, amazing album of that gets you excited, and but then you would just, I mean, for me, I think that was more of a sexual song for me. I felt just very well. Just the song just was so enrapturing to me. Even his darkness was just almost sexy, which is kind of sad to say. But it just,
If Only Tonight,
all of it.
all
I
of
mean,
it.
tortured. I mean, all.
So good.
um, but even on Disintegration, I just would put that on, and I a song would start, and my eyes close, and he just, there's an anticipation, because especially on Disintegration, because there's such long intros, and it's like he's just knows that he just wants to bring you into a really peaceful place before he starts letting you know how he feels,
Yeah.
because he knows it's rough what's coming up. you know? So,
Let's talk about Disintegration. Let's go there.
yeah.
With Disintegration in particular, um, you know, like I said, I started really diving into them when I was sober,
Yeah.
because it's the only thing that was saying what I felt on the inside. But when I started drinking again
Hmm.
after 4 years of being sober through high school, I couldn't listen to them anymore.
Hmm.
So, like when we were living together, I didn't listen to them with you.
Right. Right.
I guess it is, if I have a way to escape, the Cure is an escape to me. They are an
Hmm.
escape, but it's an intense one and it's
Yeah.
very real.
Yeah.
When I have alcohol as an option,
Yeah.
it's obliteration. I don't have to feel anything. And if I
Right.
have the option to not feel, that is where I'm going to go.
Right.
Uh, so for all those years that I was back out drinking, um, I couldn't really listen to them. it wasn't until, because I've been sober now 10 years,
Mhm.
it wasn't until COVID hit
Mhm.
that I really started getting back into them. And I
Yeah.
remember the middle, like depths of COVID, uh,
Mhm.
I put on Disintegration,
Mhm.
and I just could not believe how many layers of sound that he wove into those songs,
Mhm.
so that that music surrounds you. There's so many layers that there's no break in the sound. Even when
Right.
one instrument stops, another one or another five are going behind it, and it
Mhm.
like, envelops you into this world,
Right.
this escape into this world. Yet with the lyrics, there's just, he's taking you somewhere.
He's taking right, exactly. Um, so I was living. I hadn't moved down to Orange County, but down to Huntington Beach yet. I was living with my friend Nicole, and we moved into this apartment complex that she was the manager of, and it was the apartment complex for all of the youth that went to Cal Arts. And Cal Arts, for people who don't know, in the town that I grew up in, is a very famous art school. Many famous people have gone there, and it's nestled in my little neighborhood. It's a really small art school, and so we lived in this really cool little apartment, and there was like two master bedrooms on either side. We didn't have TV. We just had books and a stereo, and we didn't even have a dining room table. We just had this like pillows everywhere, and we had, and we had each one. I had a TV in my room, but and I think she did, but we didn't have cable or anything. It was just like videos. But everyone would come and congregate at our house, and that's where Disintegration got played ad nauseum. It was just, and I would go to sleep. I don't even know if it was a Walkman at that point in time. I'm not sure what it was, but have it put in my ears and just listening to the melodies, and we, when everyone was there, that'd be on in the background, and they'd be reading poetry, and there was one guy there that we named True, and he was a cartoonist, and he would just be drawing, and it was just this time of I was the least artistic in the area. I just was kind of there. It was just such an interesting time, a fun time in that album. So I wasn't necessarily listening to that album in the sense of like getting deep into the words. It was because it was so much sound
Yeah,
for long periods of time, that I just remember just feeling very enveloped, no matter what ended up coming out of his mouth. um I just felt so good. So
I
good.
know. Like
And then of
float.
course he'd throw in a couple of pop songs in there too. A couple of radio hits would
Yeah.
get thrown in there as well. Just another great album.
Uh, it's hard to pick a favorite song off that album. Um,
Oh, yeah.
I would say the intro to Fascination Street is probably one of my most favorite intros,
Yes.
because the bass, Simon Gallup, the bass player.
Mhm.
I've heard other musicians say this about how influential The Cure were to them, but
Mhm.
specifically Simon and the way that he plays the bass. I've
Yeah.
just never heard anything like it in the way that he drives those songs. That's
Mhm.
the other one is probably Pictures of You, and but
Oh,
how
yeah.
about what are your favorite songs or song?
Uh Same Deep Water is I mean,
Jesus Christ,
seriously. Seriously, are you kidding me? I mean, it's
that's a fucking intense song.
just because it's like it's so easy to say, "Oh my God, just there's so many songs, and literally every song that ever got put on their radio is is just a great song. In between is probably just, oh, because I just love to dance.
I know.
Always just loved his dance. Um, but yeah, I have to say some of the off songs are just that would never get on the radio. I love Hot Hot Hot. I don't know, I just love that song. I
It's fun.
it's just a fun song. I don't really necessarily have an all-time favorite because I have songs that I just love, you
Yeah.
know. And the ones, of course, the two that I mentioned because of Derek always just were. I just love those songs in general. I thought they were fun and sweet, but I definitely now I was listening to them. You're listening for a different reason than I was. So I always went more towards the poppy stuff. But when I would actually sit and listen to the music, it was for me more like, wow, this is just not a world I understand, you know? And I think just thinking about wow, the depths of of like despair or what seems to be despair. Um, was kind of it was kind of hard for me to understand, but the music that he put around the lyrics kept me there because it was just you know, I couldn't get away from it.
How old were you when your dad died?
I was a senior in high school, so it was right before graduation,
Mhm.
and that was obviously when I first heard Head on the Door. But again, I was still dating my now husband, and so and he's a rocker. So we were
What
we
you were talking about?
yeah, because he and I were dating through high school, all through high school. So he was taking me to Heart concerts and Billy Squire and Van Halen and we were going to see Judas Priest and all of that. So
All all very good bands. Yes.
yeah. And then yeah, when I moved down to Huntington, we were listening to Pearl Jam and you know and Van Morrison and we were going a whole different direction.
We were. Different direction. I remember a lot of Led Zeppelin. I
A lot
remember
of Led Zeppelin, a lot of Al Green. Like we were going on.
it was a different time.
It was a different time.
But luckily we came back to each other as friends,
Yeah,
but also came coming back to The Cure.
yeah.
Tell me about the first time you saw The Cure. What was that
Okay,
like?
so I finally saw them in '92. Is that the year that Wish came out? And I got a pair of tickets, but I couldn't find anybody to go with me. And so so I ended up getting my getting all dressed up in all black, did my makeup and tore up my shirt and looked the part and drove up to Hollywood and went to the concert by myself.
Was it
And
Hollywood
it was at
Bowl?
the Hollywood Bowl and I got an amazing shirt there with the eye dancing and it was just amazing. I just remember loving watching him dance across the stage. Yeah, it was just a great night. And then it wasn't anticlimactic because I had such a great time, but it was a bummer that I had to drive back home by myself and really didn't have anybody to share it with.
I know.
But so glad I went, even if it was by myself.
Yeah. Similarly, right, like I said, I didn't listen to them or see them through my 20s and
Hmm.
30s because I was busy drinking.
Right.
I was I was very busy. Was very busy.
You were busy. You were busy.
Busy drinking. So
You still
but
made some good memories, even though you were busy.
we did. We had some good times. We had some
Yes.
really good times. Somehow you hung in there. Just I was busy doing that thing and you were just down for the ride. You must have been like the glue you were like holding us all from completely spinning out.
I think the story of my life is I always seem to be around lots of people that knew how to consume things that I could have one or two and everyone could consume nine or 10. And I just couldn't. So I just figured, oh, well, I'll just make sure everybody gets home safe.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know how you did that. Cuz I mean eventually we would just get so belligerent by the end of the night. Yet, wow.
Yet.
You were the stable one. Thank you
Yeah,
very
he
thank you
was
for
still in.
keeping me
Made
well
for
alive.
made for good memories.
Yeah, yeah, it did. So, when I remember being in COVID
Mm,
and we all felt like, cabin fever. The fact that traveling was taken away from us,
yes,
like all of a sudden we were facing a world where maybe we weren't going to be able to do everything we used to do.
right,
Maybe we weren't going to be able to continue seeing other countries and being around other people the way we used to be. And that was
right.
terrifying. But I remember thinking, when COVID lifts,
Mhm,
I am going, not only recommitting, because in my 20s
mhm,
I traveled a lot, but
mhm.
yeah, when I started having kids and all that, you can't really travel. So life changed. But now that they're older and we're coming out of COVID, uh, I knew The Cure was going to be announcing a new tour.
Right.
And because I didn't know if they would ever be coming back to the States, but I knew they were going to do a European tour when things started to lift. So
Mhm,
I knew, and I had money saved,
mhm,
that when they announced the tour, life was getting back to normal that year. I was turning 50. And, um, that I knew was going to be my present to myself, is getting to
mhm.
Europe so I could see them in concert.
Yeah,
Um, and I didn't care who was coming with me. I
right.
assumed no one was coming with me. Who would want to do that? Um, but yeah, I had a girlfriend over here who I said, "Oh, yeah, I'm going to Spain. I'm going to go see The Cure." She's like, "I'll go." I was like,
Oh,
"Really?" She's like, "Yeah, I'll totally go with
oh,
you." Like, oh my God, that's so amazing. I just never pictured anyone wanting to go on this trip with me.
oh my
So it
gosh.
was really nice to have her there on that trip. However, that day of the concert, my goal in life, at that time, was to get as close to the stage
Yes,
as possible,
thankfully.
you know? And when you're dealing with an arena that has general admission tickets, it's not like
Mhm.
you get to pick and choose. You have to, like old school, you have to show up
Yep,
early. You have to sit there on the pavement and wait in line so you could get up
yep.
there. I figured, and from some of the other Cure fans, friends that I have, what time I needed to get there. It was around 3. Um, my friend, my girlfriend, she likes The Cure.
Love the
She doesn't love them enough to go at 3 o'clock and
yeah,
wait on the pavement until they open, and then wait another 3 hours until they come on. Like, she
like
wasn't.
I would've. Yeah.
Yeah, I know. Well, I figured,
Oh,
I said, well, I'll meet you there because I can't not do that. She was totally cool about it. Um, and I knew I'd meet people in line. And of course I did. I have a new friend. I'm going to tag him in this post.
oh, I love it.
He was the first person I met. We just like stayed together the whole show. And it was his 5 billionth time seeing them. And it was my
Oh, yeah.
first. So he was excited to be like, have the experience of seeing them again through my eyes for the first time.
Yes, yes.
But we got so close. I mean, I literally had like 5 people in front of me to the stage.
Mhm.
Um, I really honestly feel like I left my body, because when they came out on stage, he was so close to me. I could not process
Yeah,
that he was right there.
yeah.
Like, I couldn't. And I kept looking at him like, wait a second. I never thought it was going to be like this. I never thought I'd be this close, and I just didn't know how to process it. But it was an amazing concert. It is you know, I'll just never forget it. It was so incredible, and there were moments like he engages with the audience. He really does look at
Yes.
you, and he there were moments where he was really looking at
I
me.
was just gonna say that was the one where you snapped that was it the video and he's literally like it looked
That's
like
not
he was
even I mean, that's one very small time that he did. And then there's this other one when he was literally like piercing through my soul.
so yeah,
And I kept, I hit my friend. I'm like, is this happening? And he's like, say something. Cause he was looking right at me. And I was like, I just didn't know what to say. There are no words. The problem, there's no words. So
You
I
didn't
said,
say that, huh? You didn't
as
say no words?
as he's still looking right at me, I'm like, we don't need words. I just
Yeah.
like we don't. There's a whole
Yeah.
thing happening. I don't. There's no just. It's okay. It's all right. And I even after like a bit, coming back from Spain, I saw them again in Madrid, and it was a totally different experience. I wasn't as close, but it was still a good show. But um, I even reached out to his name's Abel. I reached out to him. I'm like, did that really happen, or was I
Mhm.
imagining that? He's like, that really happened. I'm like, okay, I didn't make that up. Like that. That was real.
I
Uh,
just remember seeing the video and I just kept thinking to myself, what, what, wait a minute, what? I mean, it's just like the lottery.
it was such a fucking crazy experience.
Just I mean, and I know we probably sound so lunatic right now, but it's not this. I'm not trying to say be like some fan person of
I know.
somebody. This is like this is just an artist at the highest level and appreciating
Yes.
everything he has brought to the table this many years. I
Yeah.
mean, the fact that he has been willing and able to produce what they produced all these years. So it's not just this like, oh, it's just this, it's it's the depth of what that man has done with the music, because it's not just, oh, Robert Smith looked at me. It's like he just
No. Yeah.
has doesn't you don't understand when somebody's touched you that deeply. It's just with what they've produced and what we can consume. It's God, thank you. Just
Yeah.
and thank you. I just want to thank you for
Yeah.
what you've done.
You know, I don't tell many people this story because I realize that to other people who maybe don't like The Cure as much, I sound like a fucking crazy person for feeling that affected by
Yeah.
being, that close to someone I have admired
Right.
pretty much my entire life. And like you're saying, I admire him because of his creative
Yeah.
genius.
Yeah.
It blows my mind what he's able to create. And I equate it often to Bowie fans. You know,
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Bowie fans are fucking diehard.
I,
You can if I've heard people's experiences when they've been close in a Bowie
oh,
show.
really?
Yeah, and it's the same thing. It's that
Mm,
person meant something to them
yeah.
through times in their life, or even
Hmm.
represent Bowie represented to a lot of people
Right.
concept no one had ever seen before.
Yes.
It's like he broke open people's minds of what was possible.
Right.
And he
Right.
was a huge influence on The Cure as well.
Hmm.
So it kind of is like that for me. Robert just represents a lot of things: music,
Yeah.
writing, but also
Yeah.
uh, the identity, of who
Hmm.
he is and what he broke open for a lot of people.
Right. Right.
So, yeah,
Exactly.
standing in front of that person,
Hmm.
I don't know anyone else like him.
Right.
I've
Right.
never met anyone else who was capable of doing what he's capable of. And I
Right.
would have felt equally as starstruck if Bowie was standing in front of me. I would
Yeah.
be like, what the fuck? Like,
Yeah.
your eyes are looking at me. You're a fucking
Yes.
genius. You know,
Yes, exactly. It's the absolute love of the genius of Robert Smith. I mean, and he's not hard to look at either, but he's he's
I mean, that
he's
when you
still
saw
Robert.
him in
Yeah.
92, it was a
Yes.
little different than when I'm seeing him now.
Yes.
But it's
Yes.
almost like those old couples when
Yeah.
they're looking at their wife, they still see their wife
We'll see. Yep.
as she looked when she was 23. When I see Robert, that's how I still see him
Yep.
as
He'll always be beautiful to me.
he'll always be beautiful.
Always be beautiful
So
to me.
let's talk about the lead up to our epic trip to San Diego.
Yes. Oh my God.
I have to start with the fucking debacle
Um,
of trying to get these tickets.
Ticketmaster. Oh my.
Holy shit, Ticketmaster. I mean, I've never
Oh,
in my life had a harder time scoring tickets.
I mean, did they not know who you were? Had they not seen how many other times you were trying to get you got tickets and you had no problem? I mean,
It was insane.
and
And
yeah, and just it's almost like there was like an extra California tax. You
yeah,
notice that it was just like, is it? I mean, is it going to be cheaper to go to another state? At one point, it looked like it would be cheaper to fly to go to Jersey
yeah.
than it was than to see him anywhere. It's definitely at Hollywood Bowl, or which is why we had to go to San Diego.
Ticketmaster was adding on to everybody, but
Yes.
it seemed like it was just easier to get into Seattle and Portland. I don't know
Mm-hmm.
if the way they released the tickets was different than the way they released them in California,
Yeah.
but um, I don't quite remember all of it. I've blocked it out. There were
Yeah.
moments I remember texting with you furiously, like, we're in the fucking queue and we keep getting
Oh,
kicked out. And what the fuck? I have the code that we're like, it should be
can you
here.
log in? I need you to log in. You need to figure out. I need you to get it too. I was laughing. I was
And
just
you're
thinking,
like on a ladder at work. You're like,
yeah,
I cannot log into Ticketmaster right now. It would have been way easier for us to see them in Hollywood Bowl. It's closer to your house. It just wasn't a fucking option. So when they
nope.
released the new concert dates for San
Yes.
Diego,
Yeah.
we knew we could get those.
Right.
And then we thought, well, why not? I mean, this is the first time we'll see each other in 30 years. Why not make
Yeah.
a fun weekend
Why
out of
not
it?
make a trip out of it?
Yeah.
Exactly.
So that was how we got to San Diego.
Oh my God. I remember telling my husband, I'm like going, oh my God, she's like, actually, she's on this. I mean, she's got us tickets secured, but she's throwing those tickets back and getting us closer. I'm like, this is just crazy. I mean, it just is amazing. And she's like, oh, don't worry about it. I'm going to get us closer. We're
Yeah.
getting closer. And
Yes.
you got us closer.
We had pretty sweet
We
seats.
did have pretty sweet seats. We
We
did.
were,
We were even, I think the day of, we were still looking to see if we can get even
yes.
closer, weren't we?
Yeah. I mean, we were in line still looking to see if we
Still,
could get closer.
we
You
had
know,
good seats.
um, I saw a lot of shows on that tour
Yeah.
and I have favorite moments at all of them.
Hmm.
But you remember how you were saying you wanted to make sure we were either on an aisle or,
Yeah.
somewhere where you could move because
Yeah.
Gail's a little on the shorter side
Yes.
for if
Yes.
you don't know Gail. So when we go to concerts, like we really do have to make sure she can, you
Yeah.
know, see. Uh so luckily we did have that end row on the
And the
floor.
row.
So we had a lot of room.
That really tall guy moved. Remember
Yeah.
the two? Again, I couldn't believe it. Some tall guy shows up, and I'm like, oh, he's going to stand in front of me. I just know it. And thankfully, his girl stood in front of me, and he stood, and I was like, oh, thank goodness. But they ended up moving. So I was
Yeah.
like, oh, so I felt like we didn't even have anybody in front of us for quite a while.
Yeah. And because we were on the end, we were able to move out of our row and stand behind the chairs. And
Yeah.
the first show I was that
Yes.
I was able to dance at
Yes.
because every other show, even if I was in seats,
Yeah.
uh, you're so just crammed next to each other. There's no room to move. And when I saw him in Barcelona, we were
Mm-hmm.
jammed up. It wasn't like crazy. You feel like you're going to die and you're getting
Mm-hmm.
squished, you can't breathe. There was still like room to stand next to each other, but you couldn't dance.
Yeah.
Uh, that show with you, we were able to dance
We
and
were able to do our thing and
yeah, what a
close
difference.
our eyes and just
Yeah.
take it in.
And I made that video of us
Yes.
at the show,
Yes.
and I think I've said it to you,
Yes.
but that watching you dance to pictures of you, that
Uh,
moment that I videotaped you dancing,
yeah.
was one of my favorite parts of the entire tour.
I just wanted to hear all that great music. And again, and even on Wish, I feel like there was quite a lot of happy songs, you know. And
Yeah.
I've always been fascinated why Friday I'm in Love is like the most popular song on that. I never
Okay.
understood that. Or I would hear it every Friday. That would be a song I would hear on the radio, and I'm just like, oh, that's almost an offense to all of the amazing, and I mean, it's a great song, but I mean, when I think of it, I almost feel like, did he do that just to, like, why did he do that? It's just, I've
I
never,
know.
I've never understood it. I, they always play it, and it's still one of those songs that still gets played on the radio all the time. And I'm like, there is so many other songs you could be playing. When did they start? In 78, 79? And they were
Neat.
putting out an album
I,
every single
yeah.
year. How do you even keep up? I mean, that is a lot of material.
So the last question
Mhm.
is for someone who might be new to The Cure, what songs or albums would you suggest as a starting point to explore Cure music?
And I have to go back to Kiss Me as probably the probably the standard bearer of just get into the Cure,
Right.
because that gives you just great all around great music, just kind of gets you into the his voice, what they're doing, some of the intense stuff, but then there's just some just really amazing stuff, because there's so many other albums, but they're saying different things. They're saying things that, maybe didn't strike me at the time, because I just never felt, I just wasn't always, I never felt very tortured. Probably like 86 to 92, 93. Those are just really formative years for me. I just loved those years of my life, and
Mhm.
they were there in those years of my life. Yeah, I would definitely say those are that album, and about that time, I really enjoyed the Cure. What nobody knows is that Katie was kind enough to give me um,
I play.
her Spotify playlist. And I mean, you want to talk about deep tracks, man. That was just life changing. And there's so much there. How many hours was it? Was it eight, 10 hours?
They have over 300 songs
Yeah. And
released.
it,
I think
it,
I had probably 80% of them on that playlist.
that playlist brought me from Santa Barbara to San Diego. Um, it was great. Just nonstop going, wow. I kind of got out of the later stuff. And so you had put so much of that on there. It was just great. It just, it was just amazing.
Yeah, maybe I'll put a link to that in the description. I also want to shout out for this episode. There's a Cure podcast that I love to listen to called The Holy Hour, and I will put a link to their podcast down in the description as well. And they're the first time I heard a Cure story. Like they have segments or they have whole episodes where people come on, fans of that podcast or just
Hmm.
other Cure fans in general come on and tell their Cure story. So just
Yeah.
shout out to Gavin at the Holy Hour because I got this idea from him.
Oh,
And
that's so
uh,
cool.
also another shout out to this girl Kate at Cure Threads. She made this shirt and a bunch of other
Yes.
that I have.
The purse that the little,
Yes, yeah,
you have,
yeah. She makes
yeah.
some great stuff. So I'll put a link to her stuff in the description too.
But you know what, Robert, just the last thing about Robert, I mean, that man, just his whole vibe and everything, but he just he could just ravage your soul while loving it at the same exact time. Just, oh, he's amazing. Listen to the Cure.
Yeah.
Trust us.
And I would agree with you. I think Just Like Heaven is the perfect entry for anyone
Yeah.
who hasn't listened to The Cure before.
Yeah.
Uh, um, it's just such a beautiful song. There's no denying it. No one
Yeah.
can deny it.
Beautiful song. Yep.
And Kiss Me, again, it has a little bit of everything
That
happy, joy, despair, misery.
it
So,
has it all. And then,
yeah,
yes,
whenever
it
you're
has
into,
it. And then at some point in time, you're just up dancing around. You're just, first time I saw lightning strike,
yeah,
I'm up every time that goes off.
Yeah, that's a good one. Yeah.
Love that.
All
Oh
right.
my goodness.